What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Pazza Podcast. We are back this week, defeated, deflated, disregarded, any of the terrible words you can use to describe that begin with D that go along with that line. It's kind of how we're feeling, dejected. Um, it's just when you think that Inter are going to actually put a nail in the coffin, step on someone's throat, sweep the leg, we come up short. We come up short. I I honestly was reluctant to come on because I know the tone is going to be projecting for me some negativity. Unfortunately, Vince couldn't join today. He maybe could have brought some spirits up a little bit. And speaking with him over the weekend, I think he's feeling the same as me as far as negativity goes based off of this result. Haven't even mentioned it. We're coming in after this match against Napoli. Inter ties 2-2 at the Miazza. Finally doesn't lose a big game in Serie A, but doesn't get the 3 points to really put a gap between us and the league. Milan tied Fiorentina, a game which Fiorentina should have maybe won. In all intents and purposes, this match was a match at the midway point of the season where Inter could have put a little gap in between them and the rest of the league, and really cement themselves as title favorites. And it's the story we've seen, and we've been talking about it for so long. It's just the mentality and the timidness, the scared little. It's men versus boys. It's riggedness versus trying to be cutesy and perfect. And I don't know what the squad has to do other than it is finally time. I do still think we're going to win the Scudetto. I think we have the best squad. I think we'll go through another run of games where we don't drop points, and Milan and Napoli will drop points to lesser opposition. So I'm not concerned about our credentials to win the title race. I do think, though, that this game shows what Inter has to do thinking long term. I love and have loved Alessandro Bastoni. I have loved and still love Hakan Çalhanoğlu. I have loved and I still love Nicolo Barella, Marcus Thuram, these players. But it's management really needs to look and consider what is the project going to look like post this season. And I think a lot of that is conversations. It's going to be some of these players maybe need to move on or take a different role within the current squad. Bastoni, we're going to do the normal. It's going to be a really short one today, guys. Starting lineup, it was refreshing to see Kivu not choose Acerbi and Mkhitaryan when Jan Sommer in goal. Joseph Martinez is out for the next few matches, including this one. So really no debate on who Kivu is going to choose in goal. Bisek Akanji and Bastoni the back line. Luis Enrique, right wing back. Midfield three of Barella, Çalhanoğlu, and Zielinski, Di Marco on the left. Thuram and Lautaro up top. First half, Inter looked really good. We'll touch first things first. Juan Jesus, the guy should have been sent off. I think Doveri had two big calls in this match, and I think he kind of flubbed up both of them. We'll talk about the penalty in the second half, but Juan Jesus, first foul of the match. Thuram is through. That's a tactical foul. He brought him down. That is a yellow card. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's a yellow card. I don't care if it's the first minute because it was an early foul or if it's the 95th minute. That is a yellow card. A few minutes later, clears the ball. Yes, he clears the ball. But you don't leave your feet like that in on a player, that's a yellow card too. That's two yellow card offenses in the first 10 to 15 minutes for Juan Jesus. He should have been sent off. He should have been sent off. Doveri completely got that wrong. He should have been sent off. And that was one big mistake from Doveri. We'll talk about what I think on the penalty for Inter later. But Inter, despite this, looked the better side in the first half. And it's him again, Zielinski, my guy, proud father moment, doing the job that no one thought he was able to do defensively, gets stuck in on McTominay, wins the ball back. I don't even think McTominay got booked for that, but that should have been a bookable offense too from Doveri. Finds Lautaro, who finds Thuram, lays it off. Beautiful finish from Di Marco. 2 games in a row, 2 goals from Di Marco. Very similar tight angle goals. And you can hear the San Siro, the Miazza. You could hear how up for it the fans were. And that's the disappointing thing too. The fans were there in full force and loud, and you could hear they were up for it. It never felt like the players felt up for it at any point in the match. They didn't smell the blood that all of us were smelling all week, especially after Milan tied Fiorentina. Us as fans, we smelled blood. We knew this was huge. And we just never got that feeling from the players today that they were like a shark in water where blood is everywhere circling. It never felt once like that the players had that mentality. Even after going 1-up from that Di Marco goal. And it led to that freaking villain, McTominay. It led to him equalizing on us yet again. And it's again, I mentioned it last week on the podcast with Vince. How do you lose track of McTominay? He's the only player on Napoli at this point that you have to watch in the box. You don't have to watch Di Lorenzo, apparent based off his miss in the second half. You don't have to watch Lobotka. He never pops up with a goal. Politano, useless. Spinazzola, useless. Hoyland, maybe you could make an argument for, but there's one player without a shadow of a doubt you have to make sure you track in the box, and that's McTominay for Napoli. Zielinski didn't track him coming into the box. Akanji was late stepping to him. I don't put it mostly on Akanji. I put it mostly on Zielinski. You have to communicate there. But the big, honestly, mistake of this entire first goal for Napoli was Bastoni. What are you doing? If you watch the replay, he starts in his like left center back position, just chases the ball. Literally just chases the ball like a 5-year-old, what they used to call bumblebee football, because it's like a hive of bees chasing after the soccer ball is what it is. And that's what Bastoni did. He literally just chased the ball the entire way. And then when it's him and Luis Enrique there, he lazily doesn't track Elmas. And that leads to the goal ultimately. Alessandro Bastoni, Kivu should have taken him off the pitch at that point. That was absolutely terrible defending. And of course, I knew whenever I saw the goal going, because anytime there's a goal scored for Inter now or against Inter, you gotta, everybody, first person that they point to is Jan Sommer. What do you want Jan Sommer to do on that first goal? If someone can not reference XG or advanced stats or any stat and actually have an intellectual conversation about what Jan Sommer is supposed to do on that first goal differently, it's one of those, if he makes the save, it is absolutely an incredible save. He's coming back across goal because the ball goes from the right side touch line or inline goal line, quickly is coming across his goal. His momentum is taking him back towards the middle of the goal. McTominay putting it to the near post is probably the best thing McTominay could have done, because all of Jan Sommer's momentum is coming back towards the middle of the goal. He reaches out. He almost got a hand to it. But even if he got a hand to it, he probably wasn't going to save it because all of his momentum is going back towards the middle of the goal. It blows my mind that anytime a goal is scored, the first thing people always choose to blame is Jan Sommer. And there's no intellectual conversation about it, in my opinion, other than just up another goal. Jan Sommer let in. He's useless. Keepers let in goals. VMS, Milinkovic Savic today. If Jan Sommer would have been the goalkeeper for that penalty and Hakan Çalhanoğlu hit it the way he did, people somehow would still say Jan Sommer has to do better. It's unsavable. Literally unsavable, that penalty. But I guarantee if it was against Jan Sommer, people would say he has to do better here. It's a farce. It's whimsical. It's a joke, in my opinion. But getting back to the match, halftime 1-1, I think Barella looked good early, but he fell off quickly. Zielinski, he was impactful in a couple matches, but didn't look as sharp as he had recently. Çalhanoğlu wasn't really having influence on the match. And that's another thing we need to talk about. It's just the midfield in general against a Napoli team whose only two midfielders there in the middle of the park are Lobotka and McTominay. So you have a 2-on-3 advantage if you're Inter, and you still don't really take the midfield by the throat and control it. And that's something concerning. I think we need to make a change or bring someone in with some steel a la Anguissa, someone like that Kone from Roma, someone that can take the midfield and control it by themselves. Lautaro had an absolutely torrid game first half too. I think, it sucks. It doesn't suck that he's our captain. Let me try and rephrase that. Him being the captain puts a weird situation for Kivu because you're not going to sub your captain off at halftime. And I've mentioned this before earlier whenever I first started this podcast about how it is interesting when you have a captain who's a striker. Because if that striker is going on a bad, rough patch of form with no goals, he's still your captain. So you're still going to have to play him week in and week out. If you have a midfielder, I mean, Zanetti, he scored what, like 4 goals for the club in 15 years? Like the difference on having your captain as a right back or a midfielder versus a striker is that a striker you depend upon to score goals. And if that doesn't happen, then what do you do? And it sucks because I think Lautaro is a great captain. But when he gets in these moments where he's completely nullified as a striker, like he was today, it's like, what is he on the pitch for? Boni should have maybe, if you want to be realistic, Boni or Pio maybe should have came in at halftime for Lautaro because Lautaro was ineffective the entire match. But with him being captain, it puts Kivu, it put Inzaghi, it puts them in a tough spot. It's a decision that's tough to make because you don't want to bench your captain. But I think maybe, we needed to get some steel in the midfield, which we don't have, unfortunately. And Lautaro, I think, should have came off at half. Bastoni, I think, should have came off after that first goal that Napoli scored, to be honest with you. But Kivu, like I've mentioned before, we've talked about, he doesn't like to really tilt the balance of the match too much. So I knew he wasn't going to make a change because, I mean, it's still 1-1. You're at home. You think coming out with how loud that crowd is in the second half that the momentum would be on our side and that we would really try and, like I said, smell blood in the water and attack. Tale of two halves, though. Napoli came out, and Napoli were the better team in the second half. And Napoli had the better chances. Rasmus Højlund got through on goal, which is another thing we haven't mentioned. Manuel Akanji got absolutely bullied this entire game by Højlund. It was embarrassing, honestly. Højlund took Akanji out back and beat his ass essentially, and that was a big part of the game that kept Napoli. It was Højlund just being able to hold up the ball and dominate Akanji. If Akanji wins those balls, those first time balls that Milinkovic Savic was playing, Napoli doesn't have a chance to build up, and I think that was a big impact in the match, specifically in the second half. I think that influenced the match a lot. And Inter was not playing well in the second half. Luckily, we were awarded after Zielinski came off, Mkhitaryan came on. I think Mkhitaryan had a great cameo today, and Mkhitaryan won a penalty. In my eyes, when it happened, I knew we were going to be awarded the penalty. You could see the replay, and a very similar situation happened to Thuram earlier in the season. A stamp like that, and Inter. It might have been against Milan, right? The penalty that we got against Milan that we ended up missing, or they saved, but it was the exact same situation. The ball comes through and the foot gets left out and it's stamped. So, I mean, consistently wise, you have to keep it consistent. And I knew it was going to be a penalty. For me, I see why it's given. I don't necessarily agree, mainly because the ball after Mkhitaryan gets stamped on finds its way to Di Marco. We have a shot opportunity. Gets blocked, comes back out to Bastoni. We have a shot opportunity. If either one of those goes in, the referee's not calling it back for a penalty. So in my eyes, that's kind of like the advantage being played. It's one of those. It's tricky. I see both sides of it. If that happens against Inter, I'm pissed. I'm like, they got two shots off, two really good shots off after this even happened. Why is it a penalty? Conte goes irate, gets sent off. Hopefully he gets, 2 or 3 match ban because that was absolutely ridiculous. He pulled in Allegri. These two coaches have so much leeway to go and so much audacity and I don't even know what the word is where you feel they're entitled. They go and get in fourth officials' faces and pitch hissy fits like they're entitled to do that. Like they run the league. How is this allowed? Allegri, Conte, both should be banned for 2 or 3 matches when the shit like this happens. Hopefully, Serie A comes out and does give Conte a lengthy ban. Çalhanoğlu steps up. Shades of last year at the Maradona. Çalhanoğlu stepping up against Napoli in a 1-1 match and missing the pin. He makes no mistake about it. It was a brilliantly taken pin. Went to the right instead of his left. And Inter goes up 2-1. Inter of 2 years ago goes up 2-1 in the 70th minute. Done and dusted. Inter wins the match. This Inter, 2 years later, no one in their right mind felt comfortable as an Inter fan. And who is it again? McTominay. I hate this guy so much. Again, it's in the box. No one tracks him. And this one, again, right when it went in, I knew what was going to be said. Jan Sommer. Again, it's in the 6-yard box. Akanji's in his way. The ball goes to the left on the outside of Akanji. If you watch whatever the ball ends up, it ends up in the corner of the net. There's absolutely nothing Jan Sommer can do on this goal. Literally nothing. If you want to make the argument that maybe when Politano crossed it in, Sommer should come out maybe and try and claim it there, I can see that point. But to say he gives up an easy goal, it's just not true. It really is not true. The big thing that people, whenever they do it, and why I say it's a scapegoat and it's a useless, lazy argument, are you not seeing Bisek jump up in the air and miss a header that he makes 9 out of 10 times? Again, this is a trend with Bisek. Bologna last year jumps up to makes a header, heads it backwards right to Orsolini. This one goes up, a comical attempt to head the ball out. And then are you not looking at Barella for not even trying to marshal the ball out, lazily expecting that the ball will go out, that a Napoli player won't attempt to run out there and save the ball? Same thing happened against PSG in the final last year for Barella. But people choose to blame Jan Sommer on this goal when McTominay hits a volley literally 5 yards away from goal. It just doesn't make sense. You got Akanji, Bisek, Bastoni all right there, and McTominay, the guy who everyone in the world knows, in the box for Napoli, you have to know where he's at. But these 3 players leave him unmarked. That is the issue on this goal. That is the blame, those things. And honestly, Di Lorenzo before that had a header. I think there was even 1-1 at that point that he missed. Rasmus Højlund hit the post. You know, a 2-2 draw, when you look at it, honestly, maybe we got lucky. Maybe we deserved to lose this another big match. Maybe 2-2 was a rightful luck ridden scoreline for us. Before the match is over, Mkhitaryan hits a shot finally, deflects off a Napoli defender and goes off the post. Unluckily for Inter. And again, it's a 2-2 match. Inter draws in a big match. We still maintain that 3 point gap ahead of Milan. We still maintain a 4 point gap ahead of Napoli based off this draw. But it sucks when a draw feels like a defeat. And that's what this feels like. Just a little post match thoughts. I've kind of tried to do that within the game. Doveri, like I said, those two decisions I didn't agree with, not sending off Juan Jesus and the penalty I wouldn't have given for Inter. Glad he did, though. Lautaro missing in games, Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Zielinski getting overran by Lobotka and McTominay. The schoolboy defending of not picking up McTominay, knowing that he's the guy that you have to worry about and not doing it, is a joke. And Luis Enrique, again, I think defensively he was good, but it's time to have the conversation. I've tried to shield him, but if you're not impacting the matches, like you need to step aside, and we need to find somebody that can. He's just not impacting the matches. He's not ruining matches, but he's not impacting matches. And for a team that's fighting on all fronts, that was in a Champions League final, 1 point away from winning a Scudetto, the Serie A leaders are currently, you can't have one player on the field not impacting a match. So I think, it's time to start having that conversation. He is a player that's a backup. He's not nowhere near on Dalbert level, but he's a backup rotational piece. Bastoni, I think, needs to get a long sit, and Barella. I think we need to start Mkhitaryan and Zielinski and Çalhanoğlu the next match. I think Carlos Augusto needs to start for Bastoni, and I think Boni needs to start for Lautaro. And we need these guys to be upset with themselves and hold themselves accountable. And maybe that's what it is. It takes a benching. Um, yeah, we got Lecce coming up next. That is the game midweek. I want to say that Napoli have an easier match. Let's see. Napoli play Parma, and then on Thursday, Milan play Como. So Milan have a tough match. Napoli have Parma. It's at home at the Maradona. We have to travel to, let me make sure that's right. Nope, we're at home against Lecce. Yeah, at home against Lecce. Napoli's at home against Parma, and then Milan have to travel to Como. So big midweek match coming up. Inter should rotate, should get all 3 points, and put the pressure. Well, Napoli play the earlier game in that day, so we'll know what we need to do based off that match. And Inter has to respond. We now are in a position where we control the rest of the league, and we have to respond. Again, told you guys it was going to be a quick one this week. Vince should come back on next week, so sorry for the rambling of just hearing my voice today. Guys, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that. I'm going to leave a link again down below for our good friend Dave for the GoFundMe. Please, if you can, donate to his GoFundMe, help him out with some medical bills and everything like that. Sorry for the somber mood and melancholy mood today. Just it's a draw that feels like a loss and it feels deflating. But brighter things are on the horizon. We have an easy stretch of league matches coming up. Let's put a little gap in between us and the rest of this league, guys, and let's go on and win 21 Stella. Uh, it wouldn't be Stella. 21 Scudetti. There we go. And get a trophy this year. Get Kivu, and then we can have the real hard conversations this summer. Again, please like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. As always, guys, Forza Inter.